have two lovely ladies joining us from the USA today. These two incredible entrepreneurs, Cassie and Shay. They are the powerhouse duo behind Bucket List Bombshells. They're serving thousands and thousands of women all over the world, and are just incredible entrepreneurs. So, welcome to the show, ladies. Thank you so much for joining me today.
Thank you so much for having us.
So, ladies, I am super curious, right? I also worked in corporate for many, many years, handed my notice in, went all in on being an entrepreneur, have never looked back, but it's not an easy decision to make. And so I would love for you to just like take us back to that coffee shop moment in Mexico. And I want to imagine that I'm like fly on the wall. What was happening in that coffee shop? Tell us what was happening.
Yeah, that's so funny. I think well, I guess to take us back, it's interesting because it has been so long ago now for us. It was back in 2013, and we had just recently graduated university. So I find like for us, I don't feel like it felt like we were making this massive decision at the time, which we were both so grateful for. Early 20s, I feel like we just had so much of life to live, and it felt very obvious to us that the 9 to 5 jobs that we were in was not the dream. And everybody had told us in college or in university that we were in, we both studied business, we worked so hard. It's like, they really instill in you to build your dream and go after what you want. And I feel like we both entered the 9 to 5 corporate world and we were like, this isn't aligning. This doesn't feel like the dream that was sold to us early on. And
Mm.
so the decision, we didn't know each other at the time. Like you had mentioned, we did meet at a coffee shop in Mexico. Shay was in Canada. I was in Texas at the time. We did not know each other, and both in our own lives decided, you know what? This isn't it. We're going to quit our jobs, book a one-way ticket to Mexico, and kind of just see where the path leads us. And so, to take you to the coffee shop, we love this area in Playa del Carmen, Mexico, which is where we both ended up and serendipitously met in a coffee shop. And speaking of rich relationships, we did have a mutual friend. So I was in the coffee shop with our mutual friend, and she turned around and introduced Shay to me. And we just hit it off and connected, and in a very similar place, I think, in our lives, similar age, had just quit our jobs, moved to Mexico, and we're trying to figure out what was next. We're both very career driven. And so I think it became, if it's not a 9 to 5, then what is it? And so
Mm.
that season of our business looked like Shay and I sitting by the pool, chatting business, figuring out how we were going to make money to be able to very much build a career. It didn't feel like we were trying to just build a side hustle or make some money so that we could keep traveling, but it was this navigation of like, what does the dream life like for us at the time in our early 20s? It was traveling full time, seeing the world, but also building this career and I guess a version of a business, since we had both gone to business school. It didn't necessarily feel like a business when we started out, since we were freelancing. And that was kind of how it started. And I think it's so beautiful that we have a lot of similar values, but very opposite skill sets. So we
Mm.
make incredible business partners. And I really do feel like it was our life's path for us to meet and become business partners, in that way. So yeah, all started in a coffee shop, and we are very much coffee girly. So I love that that's part of our story.
I love the fact that the question you asked yourself in that early stages of building a business was that it was very, as you said, it wasn't a side hustle thing. This is the career that we are creating. But the question that I heard you say there was about what is the life that we want to build? And then you build the business around the life that you want to live. Like that's pretty significant for someone in their 20s to ask themselves that question. Like that seems very significant. Did you have any kind of influencers or mentors around you at that age?
I had a mentor. That is how I ended up in Playa del Carmen, where she already had an online business and was working remote. And so I feel like I had an example of like what I could do. So like almost like a little bit of a blueprint. But when it came to the career side of things, like that was just something that ever since I was a little girl, I was like, had lemonade stands. I was stealing my sister's stuffies and making her buy them back from me. Like I am an entrepreneur at heart. And so it's what I studied and specialized in as well at university. And so I think that for me, asking that question was just a really natural alignment. Like I knew that coming out of university, I wanted to start my career, but then I realized I didn't want to be in a 9 to 5. So it was that question of, okay, well then how do I build a career? And also, as I had started to experience new cultures and as I started to see other ways of living is really where I saw, I was like, I don't want to build my life around my career. I want my career to be built around my life. And so for me, I feel like it was just a really natural, like internal compass. But I did have a blueprint, so to speak, of knowing. I wouldn't have known it. I met this mentor when I was in university, and it was what inspired me to even consider what an online business could look like. Because back then there was not really any blueprints of what that would look like. So she was a website designer, a service-based business owner, and had an online business. And I thought, oh, okay, that's how I'm going to do it. And then I pursued that avenue. And it happened that Cass was also pursuing a similar avenue as well in online service-based business. So for me, it was just a natural, I don't really know how to explain it because it's like a natural internal compass.
Yeah, it's such a great segue though, because, you know, like looking ahead at other people who have the kind of business that you want, like then working with those people and, you know, picking their brain and asking them what worked for you, what didn't work for you. And I know we're going to dive into some of those lessons today for you guys. Does that, just out of curiosity, did that inspire the name of the business, like Bucket List? Is that inspired by the fact that you were like wanting to live a really exceptional, enriched life?
Yeah, I think so. I think travel has always been for us something that has sparked so much freedom. We love traveling. It was a big inspiration for the business in the beginning. It was why I think we wanted to be able to also work remotely and work online, which is a very common term now. But back in 2013, the idea of working from a laptop in a coffee shop was absolutely crazy. And Shay and I just, once we started working with clients and we were living this version of the dream to us, which was working full time and traveling full time. We were living in Italy at the time. And I think that's really where our business, Bucket List Bombshells, really took shape. And we realized there are so many other women in our community who are also passionate about travel and also want to be able to work remotely. So Bucket List Bombshells became kind of that term we use. And I think now, 11 years later, it is such a fun brand name. People love it. But the freedom side means so much more to us and so much more to our audience and to our clients than just travel. And I don't say that lightly, but not all of our clients are traveling full time. We don't travel full time anymore, although we love traveling and we do spend parts of our year in other places. But our clients are, want to be able to spend more time with their children, want to be able to have more time for their hobbies, want to just be able to like go for a walk in the middle of the day while still having a very financially thriving business. So it is this freedom, I guess, that the Bucket List Bombshells has inspired from, but I think it really does mean so much more to us now as well.
Yeah, I love that. And I can imagine like building your business to the stage it is now, you know, growing through multiple millions of revenue, that your relationship with money must have been an interesting fly on the wall experiment over, you know, the different income plateaus and wealth plateaus that you must have experienced. Tell us a little bit about your relationship with money and maybe in particular, you know, how did you navigate that together in a partnership? Because we're not the same when it comes to our relationship with money.
Yeah, for sure. I think that when it came to the relationship with money over time, I think that the money came fast. I'm from a small town. I was raised upper middle class. I had my needs met. And so I would say that experiencing how quickly the money came in, for me, I definitely needed to do the work around holding space for that level of abundance. And in periods of my life, I feel like I spent it as fast as it came in. And so there was that shift of being able to understand the relationship that I needed to build with money to hold more and more wealth and abundance. And then also, I was so young. How do you make decisions for your future when you have so much coming in, and it's so easy to start to spend it in the business on things you think you need, or even in your personal life, things you think you need, without really taking time to evaluate whether or not that everything has to have a return on investment, but really not understanding what that truly looked like, and more so having shiny object syndrome and kind of looking at, oh, well, other people are doing this, or there's getting advice from multiple different people on how to spend the money. At such a young age, it was so easy for me to just kind of fall into that. Okay, these big leaders, these big people, these big mentors, let me follow what they're doing and how they're spending their money, without really understanding the mechanics of what was even going on inside their business, or even understanding what is my version of abundance. Like, why am I, maybe even in my personal life, trying to keep up with the Joneses? I never really don't feel like that is a part of who I am. And I think that there was a period of time slipping a little bit into that. And so I love that I went through that, because I coach women. I do the financial side of business with our clients. And I'm able now to see these spots, these areas of opportunity, these ways that I can coach them to not make the same mistakes that I made, and really evaluate, what are the numbers telling us? What is the story it's telling us? And really removing the emotion. I would say the third thing was that my identity was very caught up in success and failure when it came to the numbers, because I looked at the numbers every day. I've run our finances. So just because I had these money mindset blocks, I want to tell people that listening, like, I was still successfully managing our finances, and you can do that too. It just is a kind of acknowledging and understanding and kind of picking it out where these things are coming up. And so for me, it took a couple years to start to see these patterns and these trends and shift away from that. And I would say the identity one was the hardest one for me to really uncouple my self-worth from the number of the revenue number, even sometimes the daily revenue number, which we now, like, there is seasonality in business. There like year over year might not always look the same. Like, there's so much now that I can bring into the coaching that I do with my clients to just give them, which brings me so much joy to just like tell them, I've been there. This has happened. Let's like not make my mistakes, but also like, let's enjoy looking at the numbers. So for a long period of time too, numbers used to be a part of joy for me. And then they became a stressful period of time. And then being able to reclaim that joy while going through kind of all those three money areas that had blocks in, and really healing those and cleaning those up, allowed me to find the joy in money again. And I love CEO dashboards that we create for our clients, the metrics, the money. And when I see the light bulb go off in my clients who are so scared or never looked at their money, or they create stories like they're not doing well, and then we actually look at their finances and I'm like, actually, you're doing really well. Like, we actually can give yourself a raise. Or maybe there is areas of improvement. Here are strategies to improve those, and really helping them. And when I see this kind of like excitement or light bulb go off, especially because we work with a lot of visionaries and I'm more of a integrator. And so it brings me so much joy now to see them feeling really empowered with their financial decisions. Like, when we can break it down and they can make empowered business decisions from the numbers, I can see how much relief that gives them, and how much stability and peace of mind, and how they're not running into the same blocks that I had. That's my story.
Cassie, I'm going to ask you the same question in a moment, but I just want to dive into one deeper area here, Shay, before we have a look at like maybe because you're different, like you both have already described how you're very different in business. So I'm kind of curious to see how, Shay, you've been talking about using the numbers and the data to help that to drive financial decisions in your business. And I definitely have entrepreneurial friends who are very data driven. Every decision they make in their business is all based on facts and data, taking all the emotion away. And I think it's a great way to manage money in your business. But I know there's also a lot of people listening to this that will be thinking, well, how do you take the emotion out of the numbers, right? So before we dive into that, Shay, you mentioned about these financial numbers driving the decisions. What financial numbers, in your opinion, do you think that every business owner should know? So if they were building a CEO dashboard, like what are the financial numbers that you encourage people to understand, to track, to really look at, to help them to make better financial decisions?
Yeah, absolutely. I love this question. So I'd say that, well, I'll just go kind of like top of funnel to bottom of funnel. And I'd say that we definitely want to understand our leads. So even if your leads are word of mouth referrals, how many on average are you getting a month? And then if it's, other areas from Instagram, from outreach, from going to networking events, wherever you're getting your leads, I want you to know on average, how many are you getting each month? So that you can see how many of them are converting into sales calls. Because if we aren't seeing high conversions into sales calls, and now high conversions can look different depending on your industry, but let's just even take like a baseline of 50%. If 50% of your leads are not getting on in a service-based business model, getting onto calls with you, then there may be an area of opportunity where we need to look at who your target audience is and your messaging and make sure that those are in alignment. So that's a really easy top of funnel place to start. And then going down from there, the next really important number that I have my clients track is their sales call conversion rates. So a lot of times, which is surprising to me because this number, I love this number. I do the sales in our business, but I didn't realize that people don't really track this as much. And then they tell me, oh, my sales are like 20%, my sales are 80%, my sales conversion rates are 50%. And then I actually run the numbers, and 9 times out of 10, that's where like you're kind of making a story up. So when I say like removing emotion, I think there's always might be tied emotion that might be deeper work that someone has to do, maybe like the work that you do with them to go deeper there. But when I say, for me, taking the emotion out is more like taking away the guessing game, like taking away what you think or think your numbers are telling you, and actually try to analyze the data and say, oh, this is what my numbers are telling me. So it's really important to know your sales call conversion rate, because then depending on what it is, that's what's trickling down into how many clients you're getting, but also that could be a really easy low-hanging fruit area of opportunity to learn new sales call techniques, or again, to go back to your buyer persona and just making sure that that's in alignment. Yeah,
Definitely. And I think like you need to know, is the business, has it got a lead problem or a conversion problem?
exactly.
Right. And if you know that, then I remember one of the lessons that I learned from Daniel Priestley and his work. He's written a couple of books. I went on one of his ski trips earlier. What's a ski chip? That would be interesting. Went on one of his ski trips earlier this year, and he has a model called LAPS. LAPS. So he talks about leads, appointments, prospects, and sales, and tracking that every week in your business. How many leads are you generating? How many appointments are you booking on those leads? How many prospects or calls are you having? And then how many sales are you converting? And you're right, it is, especially in the start of a new business, it's an area that people don't pay attention to. And what I find as well is that they might track their leads or their calls, but they don't track the conversions because there's this fear of, oh, but I don't want to be chasing somebody. Like, I don't want to chase the sale because it feels icky. There's all that money mindset work to be done there around closing sales and hearing the word no and, you know, all of
Yeah.
those things.
Oh,
Right?
absolutely. Yeah. That's definitely where our clients are typically at, not wanting to have, especially the type that we attract as well, just having that fear around
Yeah.
being salesy. And so I love working with our clients
Mm.
on that mindset and just helping them empower them and show that they do have value and that this person wants to work with them and you can create a beautiful
Mm.
relationship. And just to summarize a
Yeah.
couple other metrics I think are really important, and
Yeah, please
I'll be
do.
quick. Yeah. So after our sales call conversion numbers, then we are looking at revenue. And and then further down from that, more importantly, profits. So for me and for my clients, I do find that we focus a little bit too much on revenue. And this was a big shift for me years ago, focusing on the profit margins. Because a lot of times you can be generating very high revenue. You can see other people generating very high revenue, but at the end of the day, their profit margins could be so slim that they're barely paying themselves. And so
Yeah.
that is an area of opportunity to say, okay, what is going on? Is it my cost? Sometimes it's my pricing. Can we increase the lifetime value of a customer? So this is now where, again, the story and the questions and the business decisions that you can make are just black and white to me. It's a very, so that's how I healed kind of the emotionality of it. I do think you need to do deep work for the emotional side or the money mindset side. But when we say like, just you tell it using, I love using the word like, let your numbers tell you a story, and you
Yeah.
need to believe that story. You need to say, okay, like we're not making excuses for the story. We're not trying to now do a bunch of random things for this story. We're going to focus on like one area in what's not working well and figure out and look strategically at what we can do. So a lot of times profit margins, then you go back up to, that could be pricing, that could be your offer ladder, that could be your expenses, it could be maybe your team. And we were big believers in paying yourself first and making sure that you are taking, just like we talked about before, our business is meant to support our lifestyle. It's why we all started it. It shouldn't feel that you are working for pennies. You will start to, speaking of emotions, you will start to feel resentful. I've seen this in our clients. You will feel resentful. You will feel frustrated. It will be very hard to see areas of opportunity when you're stuck in that mindset as well. And so one of the first things that we really like to focus on is looking at our profit margins and finding a way to have stability and to almost pay ourselves like a regular salary, like a 9 to 5, instead of these high lows that sometimes we can, as entrepreneurs, it's how we used to pay ourselves, like percentage based. And so it's like a really high month, you get a really high paycheck, a lower month, you get low paycheck. And it just creates a little bit of instability, even though at the end of the year, you're still taking home the same amount. We're big advocates of having just a stable salary and then raising it over time as your cash flows
Yeah.
allow for that. And that
Yeah.
creates a lot of security financially. And I see a good shift there. So we usually try to look at how can we increase what we actually take out of the business, which I know is a little counterintuitive to like, there's still reinvesting in the business and there's still things, paying a team, and there's still, you can have different expenses, of course. But we do start with, this business was created to fund our lifestyle. In a sense, it's created to serve, it's created for purpose, it's created for so many reasons. But just looking at financials, this business is meant to support your lifestyle from a financial perspective. So let's start there and then work up to how do we reinvest into the business for growth.
Yeah, I love this so much. And it reminds me of actually something that's very simple but makes a significant difference, is that if you have been employed in the past, one of the biggest emotional shifts I find for a lot of people going self-employed or going into a business is creating that stability of revenue and income. And I think what you've just shared there, Shay, about paying yourself a fixed amount and then increasing it incrementally. Like, I love the profit first model for that reason, because I love how Mike Michalowicz talks about, paying yourself first before anything else, fixing that sum of money, and then having like a profit date with yourself once a quarter and just going, hey, it's bonus time. Let's pay myself an extra bonus, in the same way that you would if you were employed, right? You want to create that stability emotionally and practically by giving yourself the equivalent of a paycheck
Yes, I
each
love
month.
that. We do quarterly bonuses as well. And it's something I love having my team, my clients implement as well.
Yeah, it's so great. So, Shay, so many nuggets in there. Cassie, what about you? Tell us about your relationship with money, and did that conflict with the way that Shay was approaching the numbers in business, or complement it?
Mm. That's a great question. I think we always end up complementing one another, even if we're in different seasons of life. So I definitely would say complementing. I think my money approach early on, again, early 20s, we've, grown this business to a place where we're now making millions. I have always been the ignore the numbers and focus on working harder and the money will come. And it was very much instilled in me, the harder I work, the more money I will make, or the more money I could save, or the more money that would come to me. It was like work hard, work hard, work hard. And, somebody who has a type A personality, I, worked very hard in school. I was rewarded when I got A's. I competitively played sports. Working harder and just doing more for us to make more was my mindset for so long. And for me, that really led me to a place of burnout, because I think when the goal is always more, there is never enough. And not only was it more financially, always needing more, wanting more team, I think it also trickled into the business of thinking, especially when we weren't tracking all the financial data that we do now that Shay just mentioned. On my side, as the visionary, as the CEO, it became more offers, more team members, more marketing, doing more, which just stretched ourselves so thin. And I think it became this place where you have this beast that's making millions, but also it has just taken away from parts that we love, kind of stolen our joy and our passion in a way, in the way that we were running the business and running our team. And I do feel like a lot of that stemmed from that money mindset. And I still was not really looking at the numbers other than looking at revenue, understanding, some expenses that Shay would send to me, like, hey, we've got this to pay the team. We're paying Facebook ads, 10,000 this month, or it just always felt like, okay, we need to do more. We need to launch more. We need to create a new offer. And it got to a place, like I was sharing, where I think burnout can actually be such a place that really ignites a new season. And for me, just so much more peace that came after that, because I realized I am running a million miles an hour. I need to actually step back and scale back and simplify. And so the number piece became, or the finances and the data became just a piece of that. Understanding if we have big revenue goals and income goals, investment goals, then what are the financial numbers to get there? I want to understand that what we're doing day to day in the business, when we sit down and we're talking about marketing strategies, our product ladder, how is that getting us to our goals? And then we went from having probably 25, somewhere around there, 25 different offers, to having one offer at one point in our business just a couple of years ago. Now we have three, and we have slowly scaled back up over time. And we have been able to scale up by simplifying, having less offers, amplifying what we're doing well, what's working, what we love to do in the business, and release the pressure and the guilt of not doing everything else people say that you should be doing, or that you see online that you should be doing. Or like Shay talked about, there are plenty of business owners and entrepreneurs that we look up to. And I think also we have set our own boundary of like, maybe that works so well for you and that's for you, but this is what we do, and this is what works well for us, and that's enough. And that's been a really beautiful place and season to build the business, and is very much how we support our clients who are in a similar stage of thinking that by working harder or by doing more, adding more offers, creating everything that clients are asking for, being on every social media platform is just leading to burnout. And how can we actually scale your business, hit your revenue goals by simplifying? And it's just been an absolute game changer. And just like you were asking in your question, I really do feel like, which is fascinating even for me when I'm sharing this, I do really feel like it has stemmed from a money mindset wound, I guess, for lack of a better word, and journey that I have gone on. And then alongside Shay and alongside our business to be in this season where we are now.
Yeah. Honestly, I feel like you and I have a lot in common, Cassie, like with the whole having 20 different offers and feeling like I just have to create more, work harder, because that's the background you've come from, right? Of the evidence of, well, you just have to work harder to make more money. And I actually very recently, I've spoken about this very openly on the podcast, last year pretty much closed all of the products and services in my business, took away all of my revenue lines, because I did get to the stage where I was like, I can't hold all these different containers and all these different creations, because like you, Cassie, I'm the visionary. I had people in my team who were the integrators, which, if you haven't heard of those expressions, if you're listening to this, there's two great books, and I must get him on the podcast actually. One called Traction and one called Rocket Fuel. And those two books are a gateway into exploring, especially if you're going into partnerships or looking for a partner, the role of the visionary and the role of the integrator. And I feel like the two of you have just given some great examples of when you're in visionary, often you don't like looking at the numbers, you're not interested in the detail of the numbers. And when you're an integrator, you're like, give me the data, give me the information, right? And if you're a solopreneur, you have to do both. And it's when we don't do one of those things that either the business doesn't grow, or we can get into overspending patterns because we're not looking at the numbers, not looking at the data. So I feel like you do definitely complement each other very well just from listening to your shares there. And for you, Cassie, how do you think that, for people listening to this who may resonate with what you've shared about this belief of having to work harder to make money, maybe somebody who is a big creator and a visionary and likes to do multiple things at the same time, like what has helped you to scale sustainably whilst still holding those parts of you that do carry these beliefs that we have to work harder to make money, we have to keep doing more?
Yeah, that's a beautiful question. I think one of the things that really worked for me is I think I was asking a lot of the business to serve and get all of my creative juices from the business and to also make money from them. And for those who are big creatives, like truly like to create and make art and just make fun things for the sake of them, I think there's an amazing book, Creative Magic, that talks about this and attaching creative pursuits always to a financial goal. And I think that is what I was trying to do, trying to bring an idea to life and trying to do something fun. We had a TV show, BBTV, that we poured investment into because it was something that I just really wanted to see come to life. As just one example, we ran a 3-month retreat program early on, just things that we hadn't really fully fleshed out, I think, financially into our business model, but from a creative pursuit just seemed so fun to do. And I think I asked a lot of the business, and it added on because it's not a one-time offer, right? When we're creating a business model or creating a product ladder, we're trying to build a product ladder that then clients will move up the ladder. And how do you refine those offers over time? And what is the longevity of them and the lifetime value? And I think now what really changed is that I just funnel my creative ideas in other ways. You know, I take ceramic classes and I can watercolor or paint or draw or just create a fun Instagram reel if I want to. Like, I can have fun in other ways. And I think I'm a lot more mindful that when we are creating an offer in the business, understanding its bigger context into our business model, and also recognizing that the financial success of that offer is going to be in consistency over time. And I
Mm,
think when you're a visionary and you like to do fun things, sometimes I'm just doing something because I want to do it one time. I don't
yeah.
want to see this offer through year after year. And, you know, for those of you that can't see us, Shay is laughing because, like, it's that fun, it's that adrenaline jolt of doing something for the first time. But we know that business growth really comes from getting better and from refinement and from seeing something through and from consistency. And so I think I have also channeled some of my energy into really enjoying that side of it and seeing the refinement and the growth and making something better, because I do know that that's a part of me. Like, I love having an offer that gets better over time because I have such high expectations. And that's
Mhm.
something that you sacrifice if you're constantly launching new offers. And if you have 25 offers, you can't do 25 things incredibly well. And so I think
Yeah.
leaning into that side of myself and as myself as a CEO, but just myself as a person, and recognizing how much importance I really do want to put as a business owner, how much I know that Shay also wants to feel so proud of the offers that we have. And when we meet for our yearly founders meetings, we are getting to just refine and improve. It feels that, like that analogy, like, you know, fine wine gets better over time, rather than this really high, these highs and lows of launching something new all the time, and then the low of, you know, maybe not enjoying that thing anymore and then wanting to build a new thing, and you don't get to see that
Mm.
consistency. So I think it's been really multifaceted. And I would say for anybody who's listening, because we do have clients who come to us and are like, I'm just passionate about so many things, I just want to do all of them. I think it really does require that extra kind of like sifting. And maybe that doesn't come to you in a day. Maybe that takes months. Maybe it does take years to really define, like, you are going to go further by simplifying and by being known for less things, really. So what are those things that you really do want to be known for and that you want to do day in and day out? And it might not be these 25 things. And then how can you use those other areas of interest, maybe even outside of the business, to bring you
Yeah.
that same fulfillment or joy?
Yeah, I'm quietly laughing to myself because even if, as you're talking, I'm the sort of person who I get so much personal growth by chatting with people like yourselves, girls, because already I'm like, I've written down like double-sided scribby notes. I'm like, there's an idea for a podcast and there's an idea for this. And I'm like constantly in this creative like space. And I laugh at myself because I'm like, I know this about myself. And because we know this about ourselves, Cassie's like nodding her head. It's like finding alternative creative outlays is definitely something that's really supported me, and also finding an integrator, you know, because some people are struggle with creative ideas. They don't know what their offer should be, they don't know who they want to serve. Working with a visionary or someone who's got that on tap is, I think, one of the best pieces of advice that I would give my younger self in business. And I'd be curious to know what your one piece of advice would be from an integrator and a visionary perspective. What would that one piece of advice be if you looking back on your like early day founder mindset? What would you say to her, knowing what you know now?
Gosh.
That's a great
Oh my,
question. That's such a good question. I feel like Shay
okay.
and I are so chatty. I'm like, there's a million
I know.
things that
I'm
come
like,
to mind and nothing at the same time.
yeah, yeah.
I think like kind of we were sharing our own personal journey, like through burnout and through growth. I think just recognizing, and this is something I tell myself often, that business is a marathon, not a sprint. And like I was sharing earlier about just working, there always felt like it was just there. If I just work harder, if I just wake up earlier, if I just do more, and that gave me a lot of energy. And I think realizing that our business is something that we are in for the long haul, and that there are so many different seasons and they're not always going to look the same. I feel like that, because slowing down and simplifying and being more intentional in our business has been such an area of growth. I think that would be probably what I would tell my 20-year-old self, who probably would not listen to
Yeah.
anything I was saying right now at all. And she would go and spend all of her money
Yeah.
on five-star luxury hotels and traveling and just living her best life. So I have zero regrets. I really have
Yeah.
zero regrets. But I also think as I've gotten older and wiser, I have realized that there have been many different seasons of our business.
Mm.
And it has been what I like to refer to as an analogy as a marathon. And that has been a lot more enjoyable. So if she is listening, if she would listen, that's what I would tell her.
That's beautiful. I would tell my younger self to trust herself more after failure and communicate her own needs and check in and make sure that what she's building is in alignment with her. And I think that this was something I didn't do in our partnership. I know you've asked about Cass and I have this beautiful, amazing partnership, but for me, I didn't communicate the things that were going on for me when things started to not feel in alignment. I felt like something was wrong with me. I felt like I should have the same passion and the same vision that Cass had, and that I needed to just change the way I felt. And that this was from the outside, everybody is telling me I'm living the dream. And for a period of time, I did not feel that way. And I feel like it took me a long time because I took some of our quote unquote failures, which now I have no regrets either. They taught me so much. And like, it's what I try to now convey with my own clients. But it took me a long time to trust myself again. And it's still a work in progress when it comes to making decisions, when it comes to that fear of failing in certain aspects, and also that fear of like trusting my own desires. And when it didn't feel right, I didn't listen to myself. And then I also did not communicate that to Cass. And it became a part where it reached a breaking point where it became a much more intense need to communicate, and a much more intense point in our partnership and in our business that was something that, you know, it reached a breaking point. I had to learn how to communicate and move through that. And I feel like it made it us stronger. And I feel like it made my connection to our vision stronger. And now I feel confident that like, if I am not connected with the vision, that I will be able to communicate that now. And I think that that's something that is not just was in business, but it was in something in my personal life that I personally also needed to heal. And my younger self probably would not listen. She's very headstrong. And, but that's what I would like to tell her, is just to say, like, try to get out of your head and be in your intuition and your body. And that has been life changing for me in both life and business, to tap into that part of me. So yeah, that's what I would tell her.
I'm so glad I asked you both that question. I feel like I'm going to send you a little recording back so that you can play that and allow that part of yourself to be heard, right? I feel like business is, you know, it is a marathon, and there are times when you are exhausted, and there are times when you need to rest, and there are times when you're ready to go, you know, and I guess in a partnership as well, if you're in different seasons, that must be even more tricky to navigate. So I love how you've just shared about the importance of expressing and communicating and aligning into the vision. It's something that I, as a visionary, do very naturally. I walk down to the lighthouse down near my house, and I always imagine that I'm up in this lighthouse and people around me are in the water. Some of them are struggling, some of them are further ahead. And it's like, I need to be in that lighthouse. I need to help them to see clearly that future ahead of them, so that they're not struggling by holding themselves back in the past and other people jumping in their boat and trying to drown them and making the boat heavier, and they've got money leaks and all of those things. And I just think that there's such a joy in what you shared about just being able to trust yourself, trust your decisions, and know that there'll be times where things work and times when things don't work, and that's okay. So beautiful. I know that you girls help entrepreneurs in many different ways, and we'll pop a link in the show notes to your social handles and your website. I know you have a free gift as well that you offer to clients who are potentially looking for support around getting really super clear, right, on who is the audience that they're serving. Tell us a little bit about the free gift that you're offering to our listeners today.
Yeah, absolutely. I think one of the things that Shay and I talked about for a while in our business is like, and maybe you've seen this, Catherine. I think early on, we see a lot of PDFs around like find your target audience when you're first launching your business and know your target audience and who is that going to be when you launch your business?
No pressure.
Yeah, no pressure. And I feel like, it finds its way somehow. But after you've been in business for a little bit, maybe that ideal client, that dream client has changed. Maybe you've gotten more clear, but your website isn't clear yet on who you really do serve behind the scenes, or your Instagram isn't clear, or your marketing isn't clear. And so one of the big pieces of work that we do with our clients is really identifying their buyer personas and their brand messaging so that they know very clearly who is their target audience. And target audience, buyer persona is very similar terminology, down to what type of car they drive and what podcast they listen to, and you could describe them because these are clients you have worked with or you work with now. And so, kind of like we were sharing earlier in the conversation, when you are able to simplify to amplify, this is one of those places. If you've worked with dream clients before, now you know about them, you understand their pain points, you have the exact emails they sent you when they wanted to work with you, the language that they use and describe on your calls. We want to attract more of them. And very likely, that's not the person that you are now really attracting, especially if it's been a couple of years in your business, on your website and through your marketing messaging. So we're going to share our exact buyer persona and brand messaging questionnaire that we use with our private clients. It's a free download. You can go through it. If you're going through it and you're excited to fill it out, because there's a lot of juicy stuff. Usually we have clients that have aha moments and are just like, oh my goodness, like this was just so much deeper work about their clients that they just haven't sat down and really intentionally thought about. So if you go through the questionnaire and you do it, please feel free to DM us on Instagram and share it with us. I think this work, a lot of what I do for our business is marketing, and what I help our clients with as well. Marketing and brand messaging, I think, is such an important core piece that kind of gets overshadowed and overlooked when we're talking about financial growth and product offers and ladders. And honestly, it's one of the first pieces that we define, because we need to know very clearly who are your dream clients, so that then the product offers and product ladders are genuinely what they want and what they need. Then we have your financial data to understand how we can hit those numbers and get you there. So it's a really important and fun piece that I really love working with our clients on. And hopefully it's very helpful for those of you listening. Definitely grab that freebie.
Yeah, thank you so much. I'll pop a link to that in the show notes. I actually do this quite regularly. I know that this is something that if you're later in business, you might think, well, I've done this a million times before. But literally just yesterday, actually, I came off a discovery call with an ideal client. I was like, oh, she was so, like, I hate to use the word dreamy, but she was dreamy. She was very committed. She was very clear on the support she needed, very motivated. We started working together already. And I came off that conversation. I was like, what is it about that client that made it so wonderful and so aligned? And I interviewed a lady called Natalie McNeil on my podcast, who's my mentor, a few months back. And she has this course called AI Dream Team, which, again, I'll put the link in the show notes too. And one of the documents that she gets you to complete is that buyer persona, right? Because once you've completed that, if you are using AI, it's a great document as an asset to have in your business to go, well, help me to create content for this ideal client. Help me to create a content plan. Help me to put an offer together that would serve this ideal client perfectly, you know, that would serve her needs, that would, you know, get her great results. And it's such a great foundation to have in the business, even if you've done it a million times. Like, do it again.
Yes, I'm glad you said that, because I do think that can sometimes be oh, I've done this, you know, I've filled out the one pager. But I love, first of all, we love Natalie McNeil, love her. But definitely the process that you shared, or that she shared, is very similar. It's like we are trying to go so much deeper. And I love that you mentioned using AI as well. One of the things that we do is, like, could be a very simple tip to help, you know, anybody who's listening as well. If you do have a sales call or discovery call with a dreamy client, you can take the transcript and upload it into, you know, whatever AI tool you use. We use ChatGPT, and that can also help you, I think, pull out themes that maybe your own perspective hasn't been able to recognize or even put language around. And then absolutely, once you've completed your questionnaire and your guide, like you were mentioning, and you understand who your buyer personas are, absolutely feed that into ChatGPT, which is what we have done. And I think that is a missing gap when we have clients who share with us, oh, ChatGPT isn't, you know, really getting, you know, what I need when I'm trying to ask it for something, or it's strange, it sounds this, it sounds that, whatever it's sounding off. I think it's typically because we are not using it to really understand, as much as you possibly can, the full context of your business. And in this case, especially because, you know, that is the stem off of it, are your dream clients. So absolutely feed in this questionnaire once you've filled it out. And it has made our own AI dream team work so much better and harder for us. I think because it is so specific that way.
Yeah, you've got to give it context. And another little tip actually with AI on the subject of AI is, like, if you've got any discovery calls, sales calls that are recorded, I always like to take the client name and things out of that transcript, upload it to AI. And then one of the things I get my clients to do is when we look at like creating a money mindset coach on their AI projects, is like get AI to listen back through the transcript of your call and ask it to like help me identify my relationship with money from this call. Like, it's so interesting.
I'm going to be
like
doing
help
that.
me identify the blocks or the stories, or where am I holding myself back, or conversely, the other side, flip the coin of what are you noticing that is positive about the way I talk about my offer and the way I talk about money, or, you know, am I skirting what's the price of your program? And you're like, oh, I'll send that to you on email later. You know, like, are you afraid to talk about your prices? Are you, you know, afraid to hear the word no? You know, all those kind of things. It's a really great way to better understand your relationship to selling by using those kind of transcripts to help you to identify some of those gaps.
Yeah, that's really cool. I personally think I'm going to try that, but also because I get my clients to send me their sales calls and then I go through them and then I'm basically doing like what ChatGPT does from the sales side. And I'm like, oh, hey, like this is, you know, what you're doing here. Here's where we can improve. And I see like significant improvements for my clients when I'm able to evaluate even just one. I just need one of their sales calls and we see like conversion rates increase. But I never thought of having ChatGPT evaluate from like a money story perspective. And
Try
so,
it.
yeah, I will be doing that.
Try it. Let me know how you get on. Well, I'm just conscious of your time today, ladies. So thank you so, so much for just the depth and vulnerability as well of some of your shares. Like, I feel like I've got to know you more and more on this call as well today, just really understanding more about how you've navigated in a partnership with building, you know, such a tremendous business that not just brings you guys freedom, but also I know how much you help other people to create their most enriched life as well, which we are also very passionate to do here on the show. So thank you for your time, your expertise and your wisdom. And if anyone does want to connect with you, is there like, where's the best place for them to go and find you?
Yeah, for sure. The best place is Instagram. Instagram DMs. I'll get back to you personally in there. You can let me know what your thoughts are. And then of course, bucketlistbombshells.com. And Instagram is @bucketlistbombshells. All very simple, straightforward. We also have a free Facebook community as well called the Bucket List Bombshells community. It's filled with over like 25,000 female entrepreneurs at all stages of business. And there's also a big collaboration in terms of helping each other get clients as well there. So you can always come join us there as well.
I don't think I'm in your Facebook group. I'm going to go hang out with you guys.
Yeah, come on in. I'm sure you'll see lots of familiar faces. Like, there's like all stages of business in there.
Amazing. Great. Well, thanks so much for listening, guys, on the show this week. I'll look forward to hearing your takeaways. Feel free to send me a message as well about your ahas from this episode today. If you're watching on YouTube or on video, then again, feel free to pop a comment underneath this video. And I will see you again next Monday. Take care, guys.